The first time I saw him, I wanted to run away faster than my own heartbeat. Not because he was dangerous, not because he was a stranger, but because he looked at me like I had already lied to him. And honestly, maybe I had. I had been assigned to the night shift, which meant wandering the quiet corridors of St. Mary's Hospital when the rest of the city slept, carrying charts and syringes like tiny lifelines. And there he was leaning against the nurse's station, arms crossed, eyes scanning my every move like I was a crime scene. "I'm telling you," I said, voice too soft for the echoing hallway. "It's not what you think." He didn't move, didn't blink. He just stared. And that stare, God, it was the kind of stare that made your chest tighten and your tongue go numb. Screwed me up worse than any code blue ever could. "I've heard that line before," he said finally, voice low, a shade rougher than I expected, like gravel mixed with silk. "And every time it turned out wrong." I swallowed, trying to remember why I even came to work tonight. Maybe it was the overtime pay, maybe it was the hope that being busy would drown out the chaos in my head. And yet, standing there, I realized some chaos never really goes away, it just hides behind scrubs and clipboard smiles. "I promise," I whispered, stepping closer, though my hands shook like I had never shaken before. "I won't lie to you. Not tonight." He raised an eyebrow, the kind that made me question every single decision I had ever made. "Promises," he scoffed, "are fragile things. You should know that by now." There was silence after that. Silence that weighed heavier than any patient's beeping heart monitor. Silence that pressed against my chest until I thought I might crack under it. And then, as if on impulse, I said it. "Hope this is the last time." He flinched. A small, almost imperceptible flinch, but it broke something between us. His eyes softened, the rigid line of his jaw loosening just enough for me to see him, not the man who distrusted me, not the stranger in the hallway, but him. Just him. I had never meant to pull him into my orbit like this. I was a nurse. I dealt with wounds, with bruises, with the faint pulse of fear and recovery. Love, real love, wasn't supposed to be part of the night shift. But somehow it was. Somehow, here, in the quiet hum of the hospital lights, we existed in a fragile bubble that felt both terrifying and inevitable. "I've seen too many last times," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. "Too many endings. And now you're standing here saying that?" I nodded, too aware of how close I was, too aware that every word, every glance, every slight movement could either build a bridge or burn it. "I mean it. I don't want this to end in mistakes." His gaze flicked down, then back up, and I could feel the war raging behind his eyes. Skepticism, longing, frustration, something dangerously close to hope. He took a step closer, and my pulse went insane, threatening to expose my nerves to the world. The city outside the hospital windows stretched endlessly, neon lights flickering like tiny promises we couldn't fully trust. And yet, on that rooftop, with the wind catching my hair and brushing his sleeve, I realized that maybe we could be reckless, maybe we could try again, maybe this one last chance didn't have to hurt. "I don't just not believe you," he said, voice quieter now but steadier. I don't know how to trust it, how to trust us. And I don't know how to ask," I admitted. "All I can do is show you. Not with words, not with promises. Just me, here." There was a long pause. Too long for comfort, too short for peace. But in that pause, I saw a flick, a tiny, almost imperceptible twitch of the corner of his lips. A hint that maybe, just maybe, he wanted the same thing I did. And maybe that was enough. The next few nights blurred into each other. A strange rhythm of stolen glances, quiet confessions, and awkward touches. The hospital that once felt cold and endless now hummed with a strange warmth whenever he was around. He started to let me in slowly. A half smile here, a brush of fingers there. A conversation that lasted longer than it should have in the dimly lit break room. Every laugh felt like a victory, every hesitation like a battlefield. "You're impossible," he said one night, voice muffled by the coffee machine, as I leaned against the counter with my heart hammering. "And you love it?" I replied, bold when all my instincts screamed caution. He didn't answer. He just watched me, eyes softening in a way that made me feel like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous and beautiful. And maybe I was. Weeks passed, and trust grew in fragile increments. I learned the patterns of his life, the way he avoided mirrors because he didn't like his reflection, how he carried scars he refused to talk about, how laughter came slowly but sincerely. I shared my own secrets too, the fears and anxieties I had tried to bury under uniforms and charts. Then came the night that changed everything. A violent storm had hit the city, drenching the streets and turning the hospital into a maze of dripping corridors. I was delivering supplies to the ICU when I heard his voice echo down the hall. "Jamie!" he called, and my heart leapt. It wasn't anger or frustration this time. It was raw, desperate relief. I found him huddled by the emergency entrance, soaked to the bone, shivering not just from the rain but from something deeper. Without thinking, I pulled off my jacket and wrapped it around his shoulders. "You idiot!" I muttered, trying to sound angry but failing miserably. "You could have, shoo!" he interrupted, voice trembling. "I didn't know if you'd come." My chest tightened, the world narrowing to the space between us. "I'm here. Always," I whispered. And then he leaned into me, letting his forehead rest against mine, the storm outside fading into insignificance. I'm scared," he admitted, voice breaking. "Scared of trusting. Scared of losing again." "You won't lose me," I said firmly, wrapping my arms around him as if holding him close could keep all the darkness at bay. "Not ever." The rain soaked through our clothes, plastering hair to skin, but I didn't care. The moment wasn't about comfort. It was about survival, about proving to each other that despite the mistakes, the lies, the doubt, we could still find a way to belong together. He lifted his head, eyes glistening, and for the first time, I saw surrender. Not weakness, but the kind of surrender that comes from knowing someone will catch you if you fall. "Jamie," he whispered, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. I think I've been waiting for this. Waiting for you." "You have me?" I replied, letting the words sink in like sunlight after a storm. "All of me." And just like that, the tension between us cracked, and laughter spilled from him, shaky but genuine. I laughed too, not because it was funny, but because it was the first time in weeks that everything felt bearable. The storm eventually passed, leaving the city wet and glimmering under streetlights. We stayed on the roof of the hospital for hours, talking, holding hands, sometimes just staring out at the skyline. There was no grand gesture, no dramatic declaration, just two hearts learning to beat in sync again. A few months later, our bond deepened beyond the hospital walls. We shared coffee on quiet Sundays, walked through rain-soaked streets without an umbrella, and argued over trivial things only to apologize with a kiss that lingered a second too long. Every day was a negotiation, a fragile truce with the ghosts of our past mistakes, and every day we chose each other again. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the city in shades of gold and rose, he turned to me on our favorite rooftop spot. His hand found mine and he didn't let go. "Remember that night," he said softly, "when you whispered, 'Hope this is the last time'?" I nodded, heart skipping. "Yeah." He smiled, a slow, beautiful curve of lips that made everything I had felt up until that moment seem like practice for this 1 second. "I was wrong," he said. "It wasn't the last time. It was the first time I realized I wanted forever with you." Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness but from the overwhelming relief and joy that had been building between us. "Forever sounds good," I whispered back, voice trembling. "As long as it's with you." He leaned in, forehead against mine, and the city around us faded. The chaos of life, the storms, the hospital nights, all became a backdrop for something simple and real: two people choosing each other, over and over, despite the fear and the doubt. And in that moment, with the skyline stretching endlessly behind us, we both knew that this time, it truly could be forever. Not because the past didn't exist, but because we had found a way to live, to love, and to trust in a story that was ours alone. The night air was soft, carrying the faint hum of the city, and we stayed like that until stars appeared, hand in hand, hearts finally aligned. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed in us. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.